personas con discapacidad, coordinar procesos interinstitucionales para la ratificación del convenio de los derechos de las personas con discapacidad. También asegura que la asistencia internacional incorpora a personas con discapacidad, dirige temas de derechos humanos para personas con discapacidad, asegura que las necesidades de estas personas se enmarquen en situaciones internacionales y además dirige políticas públicas, incluyendo a la sociedad civil en temas de discapacitados. Ella compartirá el día de hoy con nosotros sus experiencias. Señoras y señores, con ustedes, la señora Human. Adelante.
Thank you very much, and I'd like to start by saying I'm very sorry I can't give this speech in Spanish. And you're getting it in the headset, sorry. I've been doing different types of presentations. Some of them have been simultaneous and some of them haven't, so I'm programmed to wait for interpretation. But now that we have simultaneous, I'll move forward. I'd like to thank you all for inviting me to come and speak today. I'd like to thank the Embassy and Fundamus for organizing this. It's the first time that I've been in El Salvador, and it's truly a gorgeous country. The weather is perfect. Coming from Washington, where it was snowing when we were leaving, and we had to get the plane de-iced, and coming here was a beautiful pleasure, but most importantly, the beautiful trees and flowers and the lovely people. It's been a great couple of days for me. So I'm going to speak with you today about the importance of including disabled people in the corporate social responsibility work that you're doing. And I guess I need to start by saying, when you get up and talk about issues affecting women or other minority groups, I think there's a slight difference. Because for those of us who have disabilities, many of you have been raised to look at us as being objects of charity and pity, and people really hope that they're not going to become like me. They think, how would I live my life if I was in a wheelchair like that and I wasn't able to walk? Or what would I do if I was blind? Or what would I do if I was deaf? Or what would I do if I had diabetes or epilepsy or AIDS or any one of a number of the disabilities, depression, an intellectual disability, etc. I'm actually here to tell you that many of you would love to live my life. Although I've had many struggles in my life, like many of the disabled people here in this room today, like all of you, as we've been able to break down barriers and begin to move to become more equal members of society, we reap the rewards that you also reap. The ability to earn a salary, to be able to pay for things to help us move our lives forward. That's really what we want all people in our communities to be able to do. Now, there are many barriers that we face as disabled people on a daily basis. In El Salvador, you face those problems. In the United States, we face many problems today. Some of our problems are a little different because some of our laws came into effect and have been enforced strongly for the last 40 or 50 years. To me, why corporate social responsibility in the area of disability is very important is because when we break down both the social barriers and the physical and attitudinal barriers towards disabled people, we really improve our society overall. I presume that there is no one in this room who doesn't have someone in their life, who may be young or old, who has some kind of a disability. And families react to disability in different ways. Some people tend to hide people or feel embarrassed or ashamed. And other people, like my parents, learned that they wanted me to be able to live a life like my brothers, and it was important for them to become advocates and to fight for change. My presumption is that for people like Maritza Castillo, who's over here in the audience, who is now working as the director of the Persons with Disabilities Office in the Secretary for Inclusive Social's office, that her parents were probably very strong advocates also. And Eileen Harron, who I know for many years, who's a member with your organization, I know also had very strong parents. So the ability to have family members who believe in us and who fight for change is very important. And all of you need to see the relevance of making your communities accessible, of making sure that as new buildings are built, as buses are bought, as streets are paved, as shopping malls are developed, as new technology comes in, that it's accessible for people who have disabilities. These are all important things because they benefit not just those of us who have disabilities, but in the United States today, for those of you who may have visited, you've seen that our buses are accessible, that our trains are accessible, that you can take a baby carriage in an elevator and get to the street from a train and down to a train, that you can take a baby carriage and roll it across the street, and you don't have to worry about those issues because it's part of our built environment. That's what El Salvador needs to become. El Salvador needs to become a country where you're all very proud of your accomplishments, and you can really talk about how the business community has played a vibrant, important role to make your society accessible overall. You want qualified people to work in your companies. And disabled people can be qualified just like women and other minority groups. We were talking this morning about 20, 30, 40 years ago, and what we thought women were capable of, and in many countries still today around the world. Is it really relevant that we put money into education of girls? Can girls really learn? Those are discussions that in El Salvador and the United States are really no longer relevant because the women's movement has become powerful. Women, as you can see in this room, are employed in important positions. We understand that girls are able to learn if they're taught, but if they're not in school, they're not going to learn. So yesterday when I went to Teleton and I was visiting the organization and looking at a particular project called Poeta, I met a lot of families and children. And when I asked, are these children in school? I was told by many, no, they're not. They're not in school because they have disabilities. Why are they not in school? Because they have disabilities. They're not in school because the principal doesn't want them. They're not in school because the teacher doesn't want them in the classroom. Those are really not acceptable reasons. And I'm sure in El Salvador, just like in the United States, those are violations of the law. Children must go to school, and I know that it's an issue here and in our country, that we have higher dropout rates than we want because schools need to become more relevant. But we know very strongly that our job as employers must be to improve our schools, must be to ensure that all children are in school, and that we're not selecting certain children as not being able to learn, namely disabled children. That's part of our responsibility. And I define myself as being a part of the business community, although today I work in a government agency. Because I ran nonprofit organizations for 20 years, because I was an assistant secretary in the Department of Education, I had responsibility for hiring people, for training people, for making sure that people were getting appropriate supervision, and for making sure when people were not performing their tasks as employees, that we did everything we could to help them. And in some cases, when people were not able to do their jobs, our job was to help them move out and find something else. And that was true if people had disabilities.